Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Do you hear me? Is it okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
it's
okay.
okay.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to apologize for giving you so many definitions in my presentation. But as you understood from the self-presentation we made just a few minutes ago, we all belong to many different scientific fields, and most of all do not understand what most of all are saying. We are speaking foreign scientific languages. This seminary is a scientific Tower of Babel, and so is the COVID-19 Museum. I belong to a lab named IRIS, IRIS, which belongs to my university, Université Sorbonne Paris Nord, l'EHESS, the School of High Studies for Social Sciences, CNRS, and INSERM. And I am also a member of the GIS Playing and Society. And maybe you think there is no relationship between playing games and COVID-19 Museum, but there you are quite wrong, because there is a huge common point, which is aléa, hazard. Both of them are studying the same deep thing, which is the relationship of human beings to aléa. My point of view today is that of a poetician. What is poetics? It comes from an ancient Greek word, poiesis, which means creation, making. And it can be defined as the study of the potentialities in a given situation, which can lead to creation. This is what poetics is. The word was first used, as far as I know, by Plato, the philosopher, which defined poetics as the cause which makes a thing pass from non-being to being. Nowadays, poetics is the study of how a work of art or a work of research comes into reality. And it is a study of the relationships between the artists and the researchers with their work. COVID-19 Museum obviously is an object for poetics, because it is a work in progress. It is being created right now in front of our eyes. And in this object of research, I am given a double status. I occupy several places. First, I am a user for COVID-19 Museum. For example, I would like to study the representations of the workers of the Avicenne Hospital. What did they read? What did they listen to? What did they believe? How did they represent themselves while fighting the COVID? Were they victims? Were they heroes? Were they scapegoats? How did society represent them? And how were they talked about? And how did they represent themselves, the COVID? Because the way you fight something depends on the way you represent yourself something. So I need a tool as the COVID-19 Museum to get all the data and to analyze all the data about these representations of the workers of the hospital. My second status is that of a researcher of poetics, and I am studying this work in progress, the creation of this COVID-19 Museum project. And you could call this research a meta-research, a research on research. So since I come from literary studies, my organization of speech is within three parts. first, I would like to talk about the beginning of the project, which relied, according to me, on the process of dialogue, of what French philosopher Gilles Deleuze would call double capture. Then I would like to talk about the perspectives and the risks of such a huge project of encyclopedic dimensions. And then finally, I would like to try to speak about the more ethical aspects of the project, which is a project which aims at giving shelter without hiding, without losing data, and without locking data as in a prison. Is it okay? Am I speaking too quickly or? No, it's fine. So first part, dialogue, double capture. What is double capture in philosophy? It means that when someone really meets someone else and starts speaking with the other person and exchanging ideas and ways of thinking and ways of doing, then the two of them are starting to change and to become a bit of the other. This is the phenomenon of double capture. You get changed. It's not only a meeting and everyone goes away and that's done. No, you are different. And this is what happened at the beginning of the creation of the COVID-19 project. What was the context? What was the situation? It was an epidemic. Really, simply, it was an epidemic. What does it mean? It means that it was a situation which is associated in imagination with a possible end of the world, with a possible divine punishment, with a possible international evil organization, with a bad scientific experiment, and with the research of scapegoats. So it has a very deep and ancient imaginary background, this epidemic situation. Second element of context, the connections, the relationships through internet and telephone. What does it mean? It means that most of the time, for the researchers and for everybody, the other human beings were images and sounds, but not body anymore. It was the loss of the body. The confinement meant that the human people had almost disappeared from the surface of the world, especially in the cities and even in the countrysides, which was not such a bad thing for animals and for plants, but which made us very lonesome. I remember my nephew told me last Sunday, oh, how I miss the time when we were confined, because when we walked dogs, everybody used to say hello. They missed us, even us children, they missed us. But now nobody answers to my hello anymore. This was a bit moving, as if we needed confinement to understand how good it is to meet each other. So human beings had disappeared from the surface of the world, or on the contrary, they were under identity-based house arrests. We had to be confined in the houses. So there were places where we could not be and places where we had to be. It was a matter of where do people and where do things have to be. All these things are linked to the intellectual conception of the COVID-19 museum. The risk of scapegoats and of false interpretations, the loss of the body of things, and the fact that we had to live with some electronical personas or artifacts, and the fact that there was a matter, an issue of space. There you have to be hidden. There you cannot be, it's forbid. All this is the imaginary surrounding of the COVID-19 museum. In this context, there was one person, and it's not easy to speak in front of him, but we have to. This is the issue of work in progress. This researcher is a data science researcher, which also has some meaning to me, because I don't know what data research is, in fact, as a matter of fact. And 2 years ago, I didn't give a damn about it. But what I understood is that data science is about the extraction of knowledge. And this is exactly what the COVID-19 museum is about. Not only about collecting things, putting things together, but it's collecting things so that the extraction of knowledge is possible all the time and for everybody. This is the deep meaning of data science, not getting data, but getting data which give the possibility of knowledge, so that you could define data as something which can become knowledge. It changes the point of view. It is an interdisciplinary science in itself. It's not only math or informatics or whatever you think. It deals with multiplicity, with huge dimensions. It is, as far as I understand, never linked with very small amounts of data. If the amount is small, then the meaning is also very small. So the huge size of the COVID-19 museum goes along with the philosophy of the discipline. It is relied to statistics, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yes, because I think the former name of data science was statistics. It is relied to statistics, and this interests me in 2 points, for 2 reasons. First, because it means that it has to do with aléa, with hazard, as in game and playing studies, and it is really a philosophical way to see and understand the word. It's not neutral at all. It has a lot of philosophical meaning. It gets rid of any god, doesn't it? Camus used to say, aléa is the only reasonable god. So the COVID-19 museum is a place for the only reasonable god, as all data science words. And also it is this way of thinking the word means that everything is turned into a data, and everything is turned into an expectation. It was analyzed as a changing into a civilization of danger, or at least a civilization of prediction. All of this has to be talked about or studied by philosophy of sciences. This is not my part anymore, but it's interesting to think about aléa and about prediction in the middle of such a project. The data science researcher who initiated the COVID-19 museum, Yves is here, is not only a statistician or data scientist, he's working in applied sciences. And I think this also played a great role in the invention of the COVID-19 museum, because he works in the Faculté de Pharmacie, in a university where the medicine is a very important part of the studies and of the researches. And as he told us, he worked on tumor analysis, on chemical nodes, and so on. So he's very much concerned with the health and with medicines and biology. A third element of analysis in the poetic approach is what Winnicott, who is a psychiatrist, an English psychiatrist, called summation, which means the way somebody looks at you and answers to you when you show or say something. It is proven that no one can invent anything alone. It doesn't mean without the help of anybody, but it means that an invention has to be named and recognized to be an invention. Or it is just like one hand clapping. We know the sound of two hands clapping. We don't know the sound of one hand clapping, even if it's clapping. This is the summation in poetics. So what was the summation for Yves? I guess it was first his family and neighbors surrounding. You don't have to go away. I'm not going to be personal. Family and neighbors surrounding, people who were here during the confinement, and also professor of computer science, who is not here and who should be here, Christophe Serrin, who belongs to my university and who is very much interested in China and Chinese science, and Slava, who gives us the pleasure to be here now, who was one of the first to understand, to catch very quickly what it was all about, and who presented us with the Time Machine Europe, which made us dream, which made me dream really very much. There were also people like the head of the Archives des Vosges, François Pétrazoler, who told him, well, really, we thought almost the same thing at the same time. I disobeyed my hierarchy and I wrote to the people in the Vosges, if you want me to keep all your memories from the period, please send them and I will keep them forever without choosing what I keep, which was really a transgression for a director of archives. The media also were interested in the project. I don't know if they were interested because they understood that it was a great project, or if they were interested in some positive opportunities or positive ways to talk about the COVID. Everything was so black, so deeply sad, so lonely. So the people, the artists, the researchers who were able to say, well, there is something to be done about it. And there is something good which can come from this. Well, they were written about and talked about in the media. Now the perspectives and the risks of the COVID-19 museum. It's risky because it has such a global dimension. It is not the right dimension for at least the French university. Whenever you talk to such a project, about such a project to a university president, he says, well, very interesting, really very interesting, but what am I to do with it? It's too much, it's too big. Second problem, it is a project with multi-institutional support. Who does this project belong to from an institutional point of view? To the state, to the UNIV, to the European Council, to the world, to the hospital? We don't know. It belongs to everybody. So who does it belong to? Also, it doesn't fit in any specific scientific field and domain. It is omnidisciplinary. And you know, the French way to analyze science is the CNU, the National Council of the Universities, and it's discipline by discipline. So what are we to do with such a multidisciplinary project? And the last risk is that the project is so openly talked about and offered to anyone that it runs the risk of being copied or how do you say, plagiarized, I don't know in English, as I'm afraid it already is, which doesn't matter so much if the project is used. Well, that's nice. That's what is wanted. But if it's taken and not used, then really it's a shame. What are the political risks? One of these political risks is to worry these people who would like to write history in their own way. The people who want to make their own history about COVID and about the way they dealt with it. The people who went on the TV and on the radio and in the newspapers and who said, we have to do this, we have to do that. I'm the one who knows, I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist, I'm an expert, and who said things which were not always quite true. In fact, if you are a real scientific, it's not a problem. You just come and say, I made a mistake. This is the scientific attitude, but not everybody has such an attitude. And the COVID-19 Museum is going to keep everything. So it's the question you asked. It's going to keep everything, even things we do not want to hear about anymore, like my English today, for example. The third political difficulty, as far as I see, is the people who want to privatize data, the people who want to make money out of data. It's such a loss of money, this COVID-19 museum. Now, the perspectives. What could it be? What is it going to be? It's going to be the encyclopedia of the 21st century. I hope so. First, because it will have the philosophy of Web 2.0, which means it will be like a platform, you know, from platform in the universities. It will be free, and the wealth of it will be in the data. It will rely on collective work and cleverness. It will offer interfaces, is it the right word? Interfaces. And it will be freed from personal computers. All of this means a very, very open work of science in the philosophy of Web 2.0. It will also be like what we call in economics the commons. I don't know if you know about the commons. It doesn't exactly mean the same thing as in the internet. The commons are shared resources managed collectively by a community, and the community establishes rules to maintain the common goods. It could be a forest, it could be a river, it could be the air you're breathing. It was defined, the commons, by Nobel Prize Elinor Ostrom, who said that we cannot go on dividing the world into two parts, public property and private property. She said the air is neither public nor private. It has to be a commons, and so has to be the COVID-19 museum. Second perspective is an aim at respecting something like historical reality by choosing not to select data. When the head of the archives of the Vosges promised not to choose, this was really something amazing, something very different from what is being done usually. I remember a few years ago, Elisabeth Belmas, who I hope is still here, told me, Juliette, when you keep your papers, your researchers' papers, do not throw anything away. Not any mail, not any admin paper, because you don't know what is going to be of use for the future researchers and historians. And so the COVID-19 Museum chooses not to choose and tries to participate in the archives of the present. It will be a tool for research, for patrimonialization, and for decision support, like a museum. First, I had discussions with Yves, and I was not the only one, I guess, about the use of the word museum. Since I understood that he meant museum in the proper meaning of the word, which was not only a place for storing pieces of art, but also for the meeting of intellectuals, of researchers, and of artists, eating and drinking and walking together and rebuilding the world together. So this is, in fact, a very good name, Yves. I'm happy that the museum is a museum, but it is also an encyclopedia in the sense of the 18th century books you heard about by Diderot and d'Alembert. The encyclopedia happened to be written, it took a very long time, and it had such a huge importance for French philosophy, but it happened to be written when one understood that there was too much knowledge for anyone to have it in his or her own head, and that the mathematical formalism was necessary to understand, for example, astronomy. So today it's not mathematical formalism, but it's statistics and it's data science. You see, we are not far from this motion. It's not about astronomy, it's about human sciences, but the creative movement and thinking is the same. And to come to an end, what are the ethical, the moral meanings of such a scientific project? It is to find and to give a shelter. It can be understood as a metaphor, but also in the first sense of the word. It is a virtual place for datas and for memories and for individuals and for society and for documents. It is a shelter, a place where things will not be hidden. Everybody will be able to have a look at it and will not be forgotten. And don't think that we remember everything in history. There are parts of history which are forgotten or which are misunderstood. And the ethics of the COVID-19 museum project is a shelter which would not be a prison, a shelter which would be at the same time safe and open. Scientifically, the COVID-19 Museum belongs to the field of digital humanities and medical humanities, I think. It's a kind of revolution for the humanities, which don't have such a huge amount of data to be accumulated. It's a turning point for statistics as well, because statistics have to get theoretically adjusted to the project of the archives of the present. It is a way to make history and politics a commons, which is not a bad thing. And since I am studying books and I am a book lover, I will finish with a great writer who is Albert Camus. He says, "Le hasard n'est à personne." He wrote this about an epidemic, about La Peste. Le hasard n'est à personne. Hazard doesn't belong to anybody. Neither does the COVID-19 Museum. But thank you, even Slava and everybody, for building it.
Merci beaucoup. Et la question est toujours la même. Y a-t-il des questions? Et n'hésitez pas, parce que c'est quelque chose qui sort de votre ordinaire. Donc,
Oui, je sais que vous êtes majoritairement des gens de sciences exactes ou de sciences expérimentales et que ma manière de parler vous paraît très exotique. Je sais que je parais très métaphorique, mais derrière les choses, il y a aussi des concepts. Le labyrinthe, l'encyclopédie, le musée ont des significations.
I have one remark. So I'm working with different communities doing something with COVID-19 data. But to be honest, this project is unique because you see it from completely different angle. So it's a mix of culture, art, and basically it's about feelings. It's about human beings. And in most of the projects that I've seen, it's about numbers. So you see people, you see human in this project, and others mostly see something else. And this is really
Exactly. This is what is amazing. If you ask me what the COVID-19 Museum is for me, for example, it's a labyrinth. And what is a labyrinth scientifically in my field of science? It is the place where you go down to death to ask for old questions which have not already found their answers. So all the time, every year, you go through the labyrinth, you ask the question again, you find the answer, it's okay. You don't find it, you're going to come back next year. And it's built as an electronic labyrinth, but also as a philosophical and mythological labyrinth. And I guess it's not the way you see it.
Normalement, il n'y a personne qui a besoin de ça. Non, elle a déjà trouvé le kit.
On a un micro qui est ouvert.
Et vous pouvez fermer votre micro.
Ou alors nous le dire, ce qui a été trouvé. Je disais que le labyrinthe, c'était le passage vers la mort, c'est un lieu mythologique qui permet de descendre dans la mort une fois par an, d'aller poser les questions qui n'ont pas eu de réponse, voir si on les trouve cette année. Si on les trouve, elles remontent à la surface, on les traite. Si on ne les trouve pas, on retournera les chercher l'année prochaine. Ça fait partie du culte du dieu Dionysos, qui est un des dieux de la poétique, de la créativité.
I don't know if we need to speak in English or in French.
Up to you, comme vous voulez.
Thank you. Thank you for our presentation. You explained very well how huge is the project and how it can be considered too big. Do you know about the communication strategy to help people to share the project and to, I don't know if it's in progress or if it's already defined, or if you have some ideas to help to not worry people about the character too big of the project.
We made it smaller for a while, and we applied it for another project which is named COVID-19 soignants, for health workers. We had to choose to start with something, and we chose the health workers who were so important during the period. And also we chose the internalization, and Slava is a proof of it. It has to be an international project.
Thank you.
It's also the idea is to build a small demonstrator in order to.
On ne t'entend pas, si tu viens.
Vous m'entendez ou pas?
Oui.
Oui, je viens, je me rapproche. The idea is also to build a small demonstrator in order to be able to show the interest of the project and this idea of sharing data which are distributed. It's important to show this project in a teeny way, exactly because if you explain to the people directly the goal, the final goal, they will always tell you, but it's impossible to realize. You know, I will claim that if you understand, the project is of the size of a GAFA, or whether it's made in a public spirit, or whether it's made in a common spirit, or whether it's made in a shared spirit, a distributed spirit. So it means that if you explain to people that you will build a GAFA, a new GAFA, either they will misunderstood, meaning they will consider, you are building just again something which is against the society or for only private interest, or they will consider, it's impossible to build such object today. So you have to start from a teeny project. You have to start from a teeny demonstrator. You have to present to people how it could be adapted to other problems than just the COVID-19. I will give you an example. You are a lot here working in biology or close in field related to biology. So since few years, the Journal of Biology or Bioinformatics asks the data to be stored when a paper is accepted. Yes? So if you think now, you have plenty of such data which are stored on different places. Or whether you cannot access this data. You can access this data just to control the paper. You can collect this data. You can say, okay, I will get the data of this article, or whether there is no place where all these data are connected, which is just completely stupid if you think about it. Most of the people today are spending time to reproduce same experiment or experiment which are probably existing already, which could be based now on existing data. Okay, we know that we have this 1,000 genomes project, which is existing. There are some data places where some type of data are shared. Whether all the data of the publication, they are not shared. They are stored, but they are not shared. Okay, so this is the idea. I hope it's answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I pointed about the communication strategy because I've explained us, Juliette, about the poetic and the dialogue.
I will ask Juliette to come back because yeah. she left so quickly.
Thank you.
Here I am again.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about the dialogue and the team Yves told us about, just to know if you think we must create the team before, or as we are in a public and common spirit, we can think that everybody could share at the end, and so the communication must be very large. Or do you think we need to find the initial partners, as you said, for example, health worker first, to develop then the project?
Both answers, my general.
Okay.
And you are welcome.
Yeah, you are welcome to participate. Huh?
There is an association of COVID-19 museum. and a site, a website, which is being worked.
Can I also elaborate on this? Because from what I've seen,
Yeah.
so from what I've seen in our past projects and ongoing projects like Coronavirus, so we have data and people just come in, downloading data, and they're coming with own research questions. So basically this communication, it depends on data that you're sharing as open data. As soon as new people are coming to the community, they're producing new data, and it's basically building by itself naturally. So all this communication is basically data driven, and it means that after you'll get a lot of people from different disciplines reusing the same data, you can get even more questions, you know, and after journalists will come and media, and it will become public, it will be broadcasted, and you'll get all people involved, not only researchers, not only academia. You'll get commercial companies also interested in the same data. However, they want to reuse for other purposes, but well, that's life, right? So this is the way how this project could be built. And in Netherlands, we see like, you know, we have different views on some things. And for example, in Netherlands, money is always seen like a debt, but in countries like France and Spain, it could be commodity. So you have different angles on the same thing. So this is exactly the interest of this and us projects. When you have different points of view, you can get the same data describing both things. And this is how it will be communicated, and it will create all this platform to attract people, and people will start to share data by themselves. I hope it's clear, more or less, about communication strategy.
Guillaume, ça répond à vos questions. On vous a perdu un moment.
Oui, je suis désolé, j'ai eu une connexion qui s'est... so,
Oui, on a vu ça.
yeah, does someone can resume?
Just to summarize.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to summarize. The idea is that, okay, we will start from small project to large project. We will accept anyone who would like to provide helps. So meaning that if you want to provide helps, you are welcome. There is an association, you can join the association. Because of the type of data, at a certain point, if a project starts to run, you will have publicity from journalists, you will have publicity from public administration, and after a while, it will be like a snowball. It will just increase by the publicity it provides to the world. Okay, and then you will have as well company who will decide to use this type of object, because it's so obviously of interest to have this type of construction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there any other question either for Juliette or for Juliette? In the room, no? Online? Is it okay for everyone?
Yeah.
So I guess, Valeria?
No, I was telling I'm okay. Thanks.
Okay. So I think we can close this first seminar. The next seminar